Hey everybody, this is Gaupnekaren, and welcome back to more Ratchet and Clank. This series is the best out of the PS2 mascot platformers, in my opinion of course. Actually, before we start, I just want to say something. For those unaware, the Ratchet and Clank series is filled with several titles which feature some not so subtle innuendos, and this game started it all. The censors in the holy land of NTSC didn't catch it, or they were too lazy to bother changing anything before release, but us in the fiery pit of PAL got the censored version. People with the NTSC version got Going Commando as the title, but us in PAL got Locked and Loaded, which is dumb. However, I have Going Commando in PAL. I'm dead serious. I have a PAL version with the title Going Commando, and I can't explain it. I have Ratchet Clank 3, I have Ratchet Gladiator, so I don't have Locked and Loaded. Is it because the platinum stamp? If someone knows the answer to this conundrum, comment down below because I need to know. And also, I know the cover is a mess. I was and always will be a dumb shit, so please give me peace. Also, I will play the PS3 version because I want to. The port of Ratchet Clank 1 had some downsides, but they were minuscule. The port of Ratchet Clank 2 does have more apparent issues than the port of Ratchet Clank 1 in places, but it's playable enough for me, damn it. Enough about my rambling about some meaningless shit. Good, because I had enough of it too. Let's talk about Going Loaded. The game starts off with Mikey Kelly not being there.
Well, as you can imagine, we've been pretty busy. After Drek's defeat, there were parades, press conferences, fancy dress balls.
For those of you who don't know, Ratchet in the first game was voiced by Mikey Kelly, and Ratchet from this game onwards is voiced by James Arnold Taylor. If I would pick a favorite over the two, I'd pick James Arnold Taylor. Not to say that Mikey Kelly does a bad job, because I can't see James Arnold Taylor doing Ratchet in the first game. Ratchet has changed somewhat in between games. Ratchet in this game is more relaxed, I feel, since the character has gone through his character arc. He isn't a douche towards a large number of people, but he isn't a good douche like in the Reboot either. I feel he's in the perfect middle ground, to be honest, where he is both likable without being a fat piece of wood. James Arnold Taylor fits this Ratchet better than Mikey Kelly, and some of the delivery he does is spot on, which is most likely why he hasn't been replaced as of now. Anyway, let's get back on track. After Drek's defeat in the last game, Ratchet and Clank have been watching TV and playing Ratchet and Clank, kind of like myself. Suddenly, some alien from another galaxy kidnaps the pair.
How nice, you don't need to even lure children in this world.
The CEO of the company, Mr. Fizzwidget from the Golgon Galaxy, wants to get his experiment back from some masked thief, and we're up to the task. Both Ratchet and Clank is hired by the company that Fizzwidget represents, Megacorp. Megacorp is the vendor of the game, and it's heavily woven into the game's plot. However, only Ratchet goes out because Clank needs a vacation from his vacation. Ratchet goes out to find the experiment in a flying lab, but the masked thief takes it away and hires Fox for Less, which is a mercenary team. We go back and forth, getting Clank on Ratchet's back again, since the name of the game is Ratchet and Clank, and eventually we track down the masked thief and take the experiment back and give it to Fizzwidget. And Fizzwidget is utterly incompetent or utterly dickish, destroying our ship in the desert and throwing us out of the ship because of reasons. A bit later, we find out that the masked thief is a woman named Angela, who has confused a huge percent of the fanbase for decades. The whole thing springs from a retcon from Tools of Destruction, but it doesn't matter in this game, so let's just move on. She informs us that Megacorp isn't what it seems, so we explore Sandbox for crystals to get our ship to work so that we can progress. After quite a while, Ratchet and Clank try to talk to Fizzwidget in Silver City, but it's a robot, and it turns out that Fox works for Megacorp now. Ratchet and Clank are sent to jail, but they break free and rescue Angela a couple of planets later, since the leader of the mercenary team has captured her. 15 minutes later, we kill the leader, and it turns out that Angela was working for Megacorp at one point. I was even working on the experiment, which at this point is called the prototype. After all of that, we go around a few planets, including one where there has been a prototype outbreak. As you can see, the prototype can give birth by spitting on its children after 5 seconds of itself existing, so dead it shall be. At the second snow level of the game, Angela has found her key card which allows us to enter Megacorp HQ, which is where we need to go in order to stop the prototype outbreak, even though Ratchet and Clank are both technically employed by Megacorp, whatever. After going through the last of the Megacorp defenses, that one robot stalker, if you didn't notice before, dies due to Captain Quark, who has returned from Megacon. No, he was actually just impersonating Fizzwidget ever since before the start of the game. Ever since the first game, Steve McQuark has been swearing vengeance or some shit, so he tries to frame Ratchet, Clank and Angela, using a device which should make the original prototype, and for some reason the other prototypes tame. However, the opposite happens plus war, so we need to fight the thing. After that fight, we find out that the device didn't work because the batteries was put in the wrong way. god, I'm serious, that's the explanation. The day is saved. Ratchet, Clank and Angela does stuff, and Quark either has his balls handled harshly or is castrated. The end. The story is a bit more complicated than before, but it doesn't do the story as well as before. Not to say that I didn't get any enjoyment out of the story. I think the whole corporate espionage thing is done well, but the fact that Quark shows up so late is a bummer. It's a cool twist that is so obsessed with him that it did all this shit, but the reveal comes a bit too late. Quark is somewhat foreshadowed through some TV show that Ratchet and Clank tune into, but it isn't done that well. But enough about the whole story thing, let's talk about the gameplay. The gameplay has undergone some small upgrades since last time. To start off, Ratchet's acceleration is much quicker, which makes things a bit smoother. And probably the best thing is that Ratchet has a proper strafing mode. Yeah, you could technically do that in the first game, but I didn't use it at all since it just flat out sucked, and because the game was structured around a non-strafing Ratchet. While the first game was structured more around strategic usage of the guns, this game is structured around run-and-gun usage of the guns. Not only that, the game has some RPG elements. When killing enough enemies, Ratchet's life bar, which is nanotech, will grow by 1. When this happens, your health is completely restored, and a screen nuke occurs. On the topic of health, you also have armor which you can buy at specific vendors. These are quite useful, since that the game is structured a bit differently, it's easier to get hit. The weapons in this game are all Megacorp made, except a few returning ones which are not that useful. And the weapons also have a leveling up system. So in this galaxy, serial killers are more heavily equipped than the law enforcement. Oh, this is America. Gold bolts have been replaced by platinum bolts, and they give you access to the various weapon modes like lock-on, acid, and etc. While you still need to pay for some of the required stuff like coordinates and gadgets, it's much easier to get a hold of bolts. While inflation has taken the universe like storm, you don't really need to save up much. Why? Because of the new stuff this game introduces. First of all, arenas. These lovely places are where you fight waves of enemies for some decent cash prices. Seems nice, but the best thing about this is that everything still levels up, so excluding the cash, you will come out stronger either way. There are also a couple of open areas where you collect either crystals or moonstones for cash. We give it to this guy, who I'm certain is running the meth lab, and the cash piles up pretty fast. I still hate Planet Grelvin though. I spent about 15 to 20 minutes being chased by these Yeti creatures. You know why they're a pain? Because they're bull sponges with a decent amount of health, they launch forward quite a distance when attacked, and they come in huge packs so large that the game suffers from slowdown. And also, why I held Planet Grelvin, I like the 15-20 minute thing, I used that looking for one single moonstone. Anyways, let's talk about the most important thing, guns! The weapons in this game are extremely useful and just goddamn cool. Let's start with the heavy bouncer, a huge ball that explodes into other balls that explode. The Tesla barrier takes a while to get upgraded, but it's worth the wait, since it takes out most smaller enemies. The plasma storm, while kind of unreliable as the plasma coil, dishes out a lot of damage with a respectable radius when upgraded. The meteor gun is in some ways bad because the upgrade it gets, but combining it with the lockdown mode is so good to use. The Blitzscan is incredibly reliable not only in the beginning parts of the game, but it's useful well past the halfway point. The Mega Rocket Cannon destroys enemies with the whole firing 4 missiles at once shtick gets going for it. Most of the other weapons as well are useful in their own way, except the Spider Bomb. I didn't buy it, but I can recall 3 areas where you would need to use it in order to get platinum bolts. So the weapons are for the most part good, so let's talk about the bad things. Because fuck good segments! First off, the ship segments. I'll sum it up in 5 words. Go to Slim Cornero's shack! When you don't upgrade your ship, you need to constantly dodge roll and spend way more time than needed. When you grab the laser upgrade, there's no challenge. The boss of Snivlack isn't a particularly hard boss, but it takes so long. The bosses aren't that inspired, which is a drag, but nothing to do sleepover. And I don't know about anything else to talk about that's bad, so let's talk about the music, because why don't we? David Bergeron, I must apologize. I forgot how good this soundtrack was, and I'm deeply sorry! While I personally like the Ratchet 1 soundtrack a little bit more, I can't deny how good this soundtrack is. There isn't a single track that I don't like. The best of this soundtrack for me is Aranis 1, Usla 1, Macdo Resort plus Boss, Barlow 1, both Tabora themes, Double 1, Todano 1, Bolden 1, Grelbe 1, and Yittle 1. If you haven't, give these tracks a listen, because this soundtrack is amazing. So what's the final words that will come out of my mouth in this video? You know, this game is fantastic. This is one of my favorite games of all time. It updated what it needed to update and kept everything that made the first game so great in the first place. Well, the level design is good, the weapons are great, the music is great. What else do you want me to say? If you haven't played this game, please play it. It's my favorite Ratchet & Clank game. and I highly suggest that you go and play it. Or don't, you can just mute me or tweet or something. Oh, by the way, I have a Twitter! I don't have anything else to say, so I'll move on to working on the next review, which is Jack X. This was somewhat requested, so this will be somewhat interesting, since this is a game I have next to no experience with. But anyways, I'll see you next time. Bye!